like a lot of people, I've had a lot to think about, and we rant. So, in an attempt to try to get some of these things off my chest and not lose my goddamn mind, I put some words down. Juneteenth is a holiday, not really a holiday, an observance that I learned about when I moved to Texas. It's something I'd never heard of, but it was a observation of when the last slaves were told they were free, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation here in Texas. It took that long, huh? Anyway, Juneteenth, June 19th, was this past Friday, and I originally wanted to do this rant then and there, but I figured, hey, let's let it sit for a bit. Let's stop and think about it. And this is just water. This is going to be a safe rant for the most part. So, as I sat down and I thought about it more, I couldn't avoid the thought that empathy is not enough. We make gains to get people to understand where we're coming from, little by little, but empathy is not enough. So what do I mean by that? It can be a little abstract at first. Big letters, but bigger thoughts and feelings. Everyone has heard, at least, that Black Lives Matter. But what does that really mean in context? Well, here's what a lot of people never seem to drive home, or at least not enough for me to find any degree of truth and satisfaction. Black Lives Matter and should be valued. There was an interview not too long ago with Sheila Jackson Lee where she had said the same thing, that I feel screaming inside of myself every day. Black Lives Matter and should be valued, because if you don't value a life, you can take a life, and that's what we constantly see. We see all of these problems where black people just aren't valued in any realistic way. I'm not gonna list off victims, situations, scenarios. We know why we're taking a bit of time. Everybody from individuals to corporations are trying to take a stand, but, you know, is it for real? Or is it just another marketing moment? Because this isn't anything new. There have been people that have talked about social issues, equality, and everything else in the whole rigmarole for quite a while now. And I've stayed quiet for a lot of it because I hate feeling this horrible. These are topics that are very difficult to talk about when you have skin in the game. When people work to try to silence you and everything that you do, and no matter how good of a minority you are, that'll never be good enough for some people, and that's just the truth. So I reached back and I reached forward, and I thought of different touch points I'd want to rant on, and I might expand some of this for later topics. We'll see where it takes me. But I started definitely with Kat Blaque, a YouTuber who's been around a while. There was a video that she did about a year ago titled "Why is LeftTube So White?" The very beginning of this was an observation because at the time and the years leading up to 2019, there were just these rashes of content being made trying to debate white nationalism and trying to somehow say, oh, how good and how Voltairean and how woke are we that we can have these No. These conversations, for what? What are you really trying to prove? And it comes back to one of the things she mentioned in the video too. Are we always going to be waiting for white approval, or can you just believe me when I tell you my life experiences? That these aren't things that you debate. When one side of a debate advocates for the destruction of someone else's life and culture, that isn't the debate. And to read from the quote that I put down, why can't you just listen to a person of color and say that white nationalist rhetoric is violent and fucking believe it? These aren't things that we're just making up. This is how we have to live through each day. And yeah, most of the time I'm quiet about this, but a lot of it is because it's so very exhausting to bring up and so very exhausting to try to have a civil conversation with someone that wants nothing to do with that. When you're talking to someone that's just trying to prove points or just trying to be an agent provocateur with no real context or just wants to gish gallop. These are arguments that are rooted in bad faith and ignorance. But again, this is nothing new. W.E.B. DuBois used to talk about something called double consciousness. When he was around, he spent a lot of time thinking about the effects that society has on the minds of black folks, and by extension, all the other minorities that are less than white. And I always thought it was interesting, his concept of double consciousness, you know, always looking at oneself through the eyes of a racist white society and measuring oneself by the means of a nation that looked back in contempt. When black and brown kids go out and do things, they have to operate in different context switching or code switching. You know, we have people that go through different cultural contexts, and they have to know more than, well, other people that can simply take that for granted. It's the type of thing that makes you stop and second guess yourself and always feel like you don't belong, or, you know, this branding of more than an imposter syndrome, that you have this negative self-talk working that's always in the background telling yourself that you're less than, or that you have to work twice as hard just to do something that will be acceptable to others, that you're waiting for white acceptance. But I wonder these days how many people are even familiar with W.E.B. DuBois that haven't taken black studies or just, you know, general history. Where is he? I hope more people take some time. He might be a rant all unto himself for a later episode. But trying to stay in the here and the now, intersectionality, and being CC'd on the email. So I'd imagine a few of us have seen this recent video from the Patriot Act, Hasan Minhaj talking about how we can't just stay silent. And when he says we, he by extension means a lot of us Southeast Asian types, all the different countries, of which even mine was mentioned. So it's striking, it's engaging to hear someone literally call you out. But even before that, people should have been aware of these things. When George Floyd was slowly killed, the shop owner was Muslim. They called the cops to remove him, I guess, from the premises, but they did a lot more than that. And I know that there are some people that wonder, is this the straw that broke the camel's back? Maybe, but I'd say that that's the wrong question to be asking. How have we gotten as far as we have without paying attention to everything that came before it, without making any real social change, without caring, without valuing life? Why does it not matter to so many people? Well, it struck a nerve with a lot of us. There are people protesting, trying to make people understand, and of course some of that gets lost in the rioting and looting that happens, but To me, that's a very, very small price to pay for people to listen and pay attention to the bigger message, which has always been there. People are frustrated, agitated, and they feel horrible. And as Minhaj said in part of the video, people are starting to care now more than ever. It's probably because it's affecting the bottom line, the business side of things. Because if you treat people like outsiders for so long, they can't stay silent. If America means anything in its creed and its actions, if we the people ever meant anything to anyone, this is where people come together and try to make things work, not just for one person, but for all of us. America is that great experiment of people coming together from all over the world to make the world a better place. So, I try to stay an optimist, and I want to hope that people can take the time to listen to each other, all these different myriad points of view, but don't lose sight of why this is happening. Don't build an alternative narrative to justify ignoring the importance in lives of other people. That's happened for far too long. And it's mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting to have these conversations, even a recorded one like this. Why do you think I'm playing the music in the background? Because I just needed a little bit of a mental soother to make it through. Because I've got to believe one day the day will come when all of this is unimportant, when we don't have to take our time talking to people about things that should be basic human dignity, shouldn't be up for debate. So I'll say this one more time. Black Lives Matter, but empathy is not enough. Anti-racism shouldn't be a hashtag. We are judged ultimately by our words and our actions. And if our words and actions contradict one another, we should stop to examine ourselves. This small wall of faces are really just the more recent examples of people that did become hashtags. And it's even more exhausting when you look at the data sets that show what would otherwise be referred to as a systemic problem. You don't have to go out and protest to show your solidarity with Black lives and basic human dignity. But you should change your thinking to realize and to try to see things through the point of view of someone that is not you. If you aren't there, if this isn't your lived experience, if you're not Black, if you're not trans, if you're not an immigrant, it doesn't mean we don't need your help. Black Lives Matter was started by Black trans women. I wonder sometimes if people are even aware of that. But like I said, I want to try to stay an optimist about all of this. And I thought about Desmond Tutu and something he said a long time ago. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If you choose not to speak, you're not making things happen. You're letting them happen. So let's try to make something happen. Because empathy is not enough.